through right now is a good thing. You know, I'm so sensing so much light coming in, and yet what I know about transformation is it's an ascension and a descension. So ascending into the light, maybe having expanded experience of nature or the divine or angels or however it shows up for each one, but also a cleaning out and a purifying of anything unlike that. You know, transformation is a death and a birth. It's a dying away to that which no longer serves. And I think that's happening within each of us, perhaps individually and collectively. So I know Reverend Guy last week talked about, you know, a shift, needing this shift in a new paradigm shift, that the old systems and ways of being are not really in alignment with where we need to go. I think he said, to quote, I don't know if this was a quote from Guy or from a book, the infrastructure of our life doesn't fit the dimension of our dreams. And we are definitely, we're in transition right now. We're in transition, and here's what Valerie Kaur wrote, who wrote a book called No Strangers. Your breathlessness is a sign of your courage. It means you are aware to what's happening right now. The world is in is in transition. So we're called to grow. We're called to be something different or to evolve some way, somehow. And you know, what Reverend Guy talked about too was stories. You know, the myths and the legends and the stories are all guideposts that show us that, you know, life is a series of ups and downs. It's the hero Shiro's journey on a massive scale or on an individual scale. That we're always reaching for the gift of light, of love, and peace, and that we hit obstacles along the way, and that those obstacles and those things that show up are part of the journey. They're part of the journey. That there is a divine right order in this universe. That there are no mistakes in spirit. That the Jesus story didn't end with the crucifixion. It ended with the resurrection. And that's how our story is going to end too. We're being called to rise up. So today I wanted to just talk about some prophecies from different spiritual traditions, that this time that we're in, which we could call maybe a crisis right now, definitely a great stirring, had been prophesized. And so I want to read for a little. I shortened this, but this is the Shambhala warrior prophecy from the 12th century. And it's fascinating, so it goes like this. Goes like this. There comes a time when the world is in existential peril, and great forces of greed, hatred, and delusion rise up, threatening the very web of life. The air becomes toxic, the water is poison, the soil is dying, the people divided by chasms of fear, mistrust, and hostility. The future hangs by a thread. In this time, many fall into despair or denial, but from all corners of the earth, the Shambhala warriors, the bodhisattvas, and that is you and me, that is us, we are the Shambhala warriors, begin to arise, not as soldiers with weapons, but as humans of heart and awareness. These bodhisattvas are everyday people who feel the suffering of the world and choose not to turn away. The Shambhala warrior's task is to enter into the very core of systems that perpetually harm. Yes, the institutions, the halls of power, but most fundamentally the delusional stories, the habits of heart and mind that separate us, that close us, that fuel violence and domination. And from within, they begin to dismantle these forces. Now is the time that the Shambhala warriors go into training and engage. Now is the time. And they do this with two essential weapons or tools: compassion and wisdom. Compassion gives us the energy and courage to stay present and engaged, to face pain, to realize our shared vulnerability, our shared belonging, and to act without hatred. Compassion allows them to see clearly that there is no evil. It is the illusion of separateness that gives rise to fear, violence, and suffering. It covers over the basic goodness that's our source. It covers over our connectedness. The power of the Shambhala warrior comes from their unwavering trust in basic goodness, trust in love and awareness, trust in the truth of our belonging, trust in our capacity to awaken. And that was written in the 12th century. So here we are. Here we are, right? That's told by Joanna Macy. So can we trust in this basic goodness and this love? You know, Albert Einstein said that you can really, the question, is the universe friendly, can really portray how someone's actions or the way we're going to be in the world. Do we see a friendly universe or not? Can we trust in the power for good despite it all? Can we see that the basic goodness of this universe and in each and every person is the changeless greatest truth? Can we not be blinded by unskilled behavior within ourselves, within each other, within the collective? Can we really know that? And I think that that's what we're called to right now, to know that love is much more the truth about us than any kind of ego consciousness. And that the path through what we're going through is this path of love, is this path of compassion, is this path of seeing goodness, and it helps bridge the divides that we're in right now. The universe is a friendly place. Thomas Merton says, we are living in a world that is absolutely transparent, and the divine is shining through it all. This is not a nice story or fable. It is true. It is true. The founder of Science of Mind, religious science, Ernest Holmes says, I know there is a power for good. I know there is a power for good that enables me to help others and to bless the whole world. So I say quietly to myself, there is one life. That life is God. That life is love. Spirit revved up on that one. I just started. So how do we trust in the world that we see? How do we trust? I think there's two types of trust. One is spiritual trust, which is trusting in everything I've just talked about, really. That there's a power for good. that the universe, spirit, nature, source, whatever we want to call it, is all loving and all giving. And that is the truth back of everything. That standing in our spiritual truth, a knowing that this is not a universe, not a spirit that punishes us or that wants us to suffer. That everything, like the Bible stories, like the Jesus story, like the Buddha story, is that we have to go through the storms, through the crises, in order to rise up again. Everything in divine right order. Everything. Course of Miracles says, this is one of my favorite quotes, what could you not accept if you but knew that every event, past, present, and yet to come, was gently placed, gently, not always feels doesn't always feel gently placed by one whose only purpose was your greatest good? What could we not accept if we knew that? Life works. One of my earliest teachers, said a sign of being a spiritual being or living from a spiritual perspective was rooting ourselves in this little phrase. He would say, life works, and you can trust it. And I like to add that we may not always like it, and it may hurt deeply, and we often don't understand it. But spiritual trust is saying that it's all unfolding for our greatest and highest good, much like the Louise Hay quote says, right? All is unfolding for the greatest and highest good. I think the second type of trust is relational trust. And I think this has to be, with relational trust, we're a little bit more discerning, perhaps. Someone earns our trust. Our trust is based on someone's level of consciousness, their honesty, how they live life, and also how much stress they're under. And I think we're all under a lot of stress right now. And stress amplifies our woundedness. Stress amplifies our issues. All of this, it amplifies it. We don't always act from our highest and greatest good, and from that love, and from that compassion, and from that awareness when we're stressed. There's a funny little story that Tara Brach calls, I'm going to shorten it, but there are 3 monks. I won't tell you how they got there, but they're stranded on a desert island. And they're stranded there, and suddenly a genie appears and says to them, you each have a wish. And the first monk says, I just want to go home. I just want to go back to the monastery. They'd been on some outing away from the monastery. I just want to go back to the monastery. And so he's gone. And then the second monk comes to the genie and says, I think I'd kind of missing him. Think I'd like to be back at the monastery with him too. So off he goes. The third monk says, I'm missing those 2. I wish they would come back. So we don't always do so well under duress and under stress, right? We cut each other a lot of slack right now, I think, because we're stressed, like the monks. And we all have insecurities. We all have unmet needs. Anyone not have that? We all have ego tendencies. And I think it's probably true to say that on a deep, deep level, we're all a little scared right now. Our inner little children are scared. Things are feeling a little out of our control to some degree. So it's to be aware of that and to know that that's okay, that lives in there. But Spirit lives in us too. Remember the part that has never been harmed or affected or perturbed or disturbed by anything that's going on. Can we amplify our trust? Can we practice trusting? And it is a practice. Seeing goodness. Trusting in goodness. So that it becomes a habit, so that it becomes, moves from being an idea to being embodied. It's who we are. It's the slant and the viewpoint we see things on. And I think the more we do that, the more we're freed up. Let's take a breath together. And as we see that goodness in ourselves and each other, it calls more goodness forward. Does. It calls it forward in others. And we know this because we're relational beings. And we learn and adapt, what we see others mirroring. And the great visionary teachers like Martin Luther King, Gandhi, great examples of that. Martin Luther King held a vision of the beloved community. And people came and became the beloved community. So can we be a beacon of light right now? Can we hold the vision like Martin Luther King did in a world that looked anything unlike what he was standing for? Able to get out of any of his own issues or feelings that may have stood in the way of being that, and rise up and rise strong. Gregory Boyle is another great example of this. He's a priest who works in East LA with some of the most worst gangs of violent, gang members. And he's got a nonprofit called Homeboy Industries. And he's written a book called Tattoos on the Heart. And there's many beautiful stories and uplifting stories. But at Homeboy Industries, he has two principles that everyone who comes in has to abide by. And the first is, everyone is unshakably good, no exceptions. And the second principle is, we belong to each other, no exceptions. What great principles. And I've seen previous gang members who have been transformed by Homeboy Industries, taking on these principles, because really, what are gangs really wanting is a sense of belonging, a sense of being part of something. And so what Gregory has done is spoken to that, recognizing that need, and offering something of much higher and richer and deeper value. We are all unshakably good, no exceptions. Now, many, many people are covered over by ego consciousness, by unskilled behavior, by woundedness, by they have not living in their God self. And underneath it all, this is the principle that we stand on, or the Shambhala warrior invites us to stand on, is that underneath it all, if we are all sparks of spirit, if we are all manifestations of that divine intelligence, if we are all connected and we are all one, and if the universe is good and we are the universe, therefore we are all good, no exceptions. That's our intrinsic nature. And so can we stand in that and not be blinded by what we see? To hold that in the midst of it all. I think that's the calling. Thich Nhat Hanh says, I think he does, Thich Nhat Hanh says, "This, my dear, is the greatest challenge to being alive. To witness injustices in the world and not allow it to consume your light." Isn't that it? There it is. That's the message. To not be consumed by the injustice of, not to let the injustice of the world consume our light. And there's so much good going on. Have you seen those monks that are walking for peace? 18 monks are walking for peace. They're really cute. They're walking from Texas to Washington. And, you know, they're just peaceful. And they're encouraging us to each day write down on a piece of paper, I can't really, something to the effect of, I am going to be a vessel of peace today, or I am having a peaceful day. I am bringing peace wherever I go today. And they talk about, we are not going to find that peace out there. We are not going to find that peace in our government officials, in the world, in the corporations, in all that's going on. We're not. But we can find it within ourselves. It's a practice. We already have that light of peace. And we were born for times like this. We have within us the sage warrior energy, the strong power to rise up and take action if called, and to speak up, and to do it from a loving, open, compassionate heart, all at the same time. We're called to that. And so I think one of the ways to practice anything, for me anyway, is to notice, where am I on that scale? What are some signs, perhaps, that we're living in some mistrust? And one of the signs of mistrust is if we're judging and blaming ourselves or others. That's just and we work with ourselves in a really loving, kind way so that we can be what we're called to be. We can't leave old stuff hanging in there. I think the second is, let me come to my notes. Maybe we have what Tara Brach calls toxic mistrust. There's very few individuals, including ourselves, that we trust. We have a belief that people are unsafe, that life is against us, or we're not safe. Do we have a deep sense of separation or not belonging? And we practice awakening, because it is a trance, awakening from the trance of mistrust. And I think it's our practices, being in nature. How can we not but trust when we're in the beauty of nature, the divine unfoldment that happens through the seasons in nature, so natural and organic, so soothing and healing. Prayer lifts us up. Pray, let me trust in the intrinsic goodness within myself and others and within this universe. Prayer is so powerful too. calling in an entity if we want to. There's nothing wrong with that. We believe in an invisible force, an invisible energy that is God. And I know for me, sometimes it's just nice to evoke the energy of Buddha or Kuan Yin or whoever it may be, right? Was feeling kind of, had a little bit of a rocky week, and I was feeling vulnerable and sitting, meditating and breathing, and I looked on my altar, and I'm like, oh yeah, all right, there you all are. Come on in, surround me. So I think not to be shy about calling in. Maybe it's angels, maybe it's souls, maybe it's elemental beings, whatever it is. Maybe it's nature herself, but calling in what can help us to trust. And here's a poem from Rumi that I like. I must have been incredibly simple or drunk or insane to sneak into my own house and steal money, to climb over the fence and take my own vegetables. But no more. I've gotten free of that ignorant fist that was pinching and twisting my secret self. The universe and the light of the stars come through me. I am the crescent moon put up over the gate to the festival. I am the crescent moon put up over the gate to the festival. Trusting who we are. There's a great healing that's happening on our planet. I want to briefly just talk about two other prophecies. And one is Andrew Harvey talks about being in India in the 60s and meeting this priest called Father Bede Griffith. And Father Bede had a stroke one day out on his veranda, and the whole right side of his brain was shut down, so he was totally in his left brain, divine feminine energy. And he saw this beautiful, he saw really clearly that this is what the world was needing to come into balance. And not long after that, he had a vision of what he called a great healing that was going to happen. And the time that people are talking about is from 2012 to 2032, kind of for some reason that's the time. You've heard of that? So we're in the midst of it right now. But what Father Bede said was in his vision was that it was going to take an immense crisis or series of crises. Never know if it's crises or just crisis, but anyway, series of them, right? In order, it was going to be like we were in a cauldron. In order for this great healing to happen. Again, this time has been prophesied. It's here. We're certainly in the cauldron right now, I think, right? Because there's the death of the previous way of beings, what I talked about in the beginning, the transformation, resurrection. There has to be a death and a birth. And so the crisis puts us in that cauldron where we're stirred around, and there's a dying to what no longer serves and a birthing into this new divine human, he calls it, that we're born to be. We're in it, and we're safe, and we're held on the journey. Alberto Villaldo from the Amazon shamanic tradition talks about the Inca prophecy. Same thing. 500 years ago, this was prophesied, that a time like this would come, and that we are being called, you've heard me speak of this before, to move from being Homo sapiens to Homo luminous, beings of light. and that would come about during this time, this transformation of us moving more and more into the God self that we're born to be. Let me see if there's anything more about that. So all is in divine order. All is well. Everything is working out for our highest good. Out of this situation, only good will come. We're safe. We're just going through a natural cycle that needs to happen. So can we allow the birthing to happen? And as with birth, there are labor pains. And there is contraction and there is expansion. And I think the breath is what just keeps us breathing through it all. Being with what's coming up from the depths, old stuff maybe, and being open to the light that's pouring in all at the same time. And the calling is to move from ego consciousness and even group consciousness. Because group consciousness is all about what side we're on, whether we're black or white, male or female, who we vote for, who we don't like. It's still some separation in group consciousness to rise up into unity consciousness, where we are one. We are good. There's an intrinsic goodness that's at play here. And that this prophecy, Father Bede says, is not a punishment. It is not Judgment Day. It is not the apocalypse. It is merely what needs to happen to serve our greatest and highest good. Right? And we're up for it. So let's do this affirmation together. I'll say a line and you say a line. All is well. Everything is working out for my highest good. Out of this situation, only good will come. I am safe. I am safe. I am safe. So let's breathe in those words. I'm safe here in this body. We come home to ourselves, to the light, to the love, to the beauty, to the power, to the freedom, to the joy, to the goodness of infinite presence, divine grace. We come home to it. We put our faith in it. We have spiritual trust in it. The all that is, the all that ever was, the all that ever will be in this changing world. Spirit is formless and changeless and ongoing. The goodness of the universe expresses through me, expresses through each and every one here, and all beings everywhere. No exceptions. We belong to each other, no exceptions. And so I'm just knowing we are up for the task to be the light workers that we're called to be a vessel in whatever way Spirit moves through us, a vessel of peace, a vessel of goodness, a vessel of divine power, a strong Shambhala warrior, sage warrior, strong back, soft front. Grateful to anchor in these truths on this Sunday. To know that it is true that all is well, always in the mind of God, that the divine plan is always unfolding in divine right order, that all is divinely ordained. There are no mistakes in this infinitely intelligent universe. How could it be so? Grateful that we get to use the circumstances and conditions of our life, whatever is going on in our own personal life and what's going on collectively, we get to use it to strengthen that muscle of trust, to strengthen that muscle of love, to strengthen that muscle of peace, to let our divine light shine brilliantly and brightly and radiantly through it all. And all who see it are touched by it. And as we show up as we call more and more of that forward in our lives and in the world. So thank you, Spirit, for divine grace and mercy on all of us and shining through all of it. Grateful to know there's no power greater than love. No power. And I release my word to the very soul of the universe, knowing all is done already in the mind of God. There's already a pattern of perfection that aligns with our highest intention, that aligns with these words of truth I have spoken. It's done. We just have to align our consciousness with it now. The higher we get in our frequency, the closer we get to the world we want to see. Consciousness precedes form. Grateful for this knowing and this ability that we have. I let it rest. I let it be. And together we say, and so it is. Amen.